Right. So in the previous session, we discussed about API testing in using Postman, especially whenever we are working on the Guidewire applications or else any integration applications. Because whenever we are integrating, because the importance of API is all about integrating two different applications to create a communication between those two. Let's say, for example, when we are using Guidewire application, we can integrate Guidewire application with uh, Salesforce, or we can integrate a Guidewire application with some any ERP systems, etc. It's always important for us to create communication, right? So for that reason, generally APIs are being used. In this regard, REST API is one of the API. Of course, we have Web API, SOAP API, all that. One of the API is called REST API, which is majorly used to develop communication and all everything over here. In this regard, so whenever we are working on REST API, CRUD functionality, testing variables, etc. So wherein we need to select the authorization, whatever the basic authorization and all everything. Like nowadays, we are using OAuth 2.0. This is an authorization which normally we have to use it. So whenever we are selecting the authorization part, it's always important for us to understand about the scripting part as well. Because whatever the scripting, normally we use Java scripting, especially most of the applications for web applications in the real world. So we use Java scripting, Python, right? So Python will be there, right? At the same time, Perl scripting. At the same time, when we are working on Jira related stuff and all, we are using even for Groovy related stuff, Groovy scripting, etc. All these things are comes under the scripting part, right? So either it can be a prerequisite or a post scripting, etc. All that. Next, when we talk about variables and all, we need to add the variables, whatever the new variables to be required, so that adding new variables can also be done, right? So for example, variable is a number as in I have taken, right? So we need to initiate the value, and whatever the current value and all everything should also be initiated. This is how generally adding new variables and all everything is what something which we have to be performed with. Next, at the same time, when you want to run the collections and all, make sure whatever the runtime environment is initiated from where the source has been taken. At the same time, how much duration this is something useful is what something which we have to be selected in this regard. So this is all comes under the running part, running collections, etc. All that. Now, when coming back to the authorization, wherein, as I mentioned you, different authorization types we have. OAuth 2.0 means OAuth authentication authorization, OAuth 2.0 using CRUD functionality. So whenever we are working on OAuth 2.0, we need to add OAuth 2.4 to the two different things. Either it can be headers or it can be URL, because most of the applications now and then we are using, because Guidewire is a cloud-based application, cloud application Guidewire. So as and when Guidewire is a cloud application, we can use and we can integrate this with URL, okay, through some URL ID number, it will be integrated, right? So we can access it. That's the reason why we have to select an authorization data from URL, right? So request URL is what something which we have to be selected. Next, whatever the required and available tokens to be taken, so those tokens we have to be taken. So for that token creation, we have to do it as separate. So once token creation is something we have done, so that automatically this availability of tokens and all everything can be used apart. Next, if you want to configure the new tokens and all, as I mentioned you, right? So you need to mention the token name, right? So for example, here you can see available token, there is nothing of that sort. So if you want, you can just select, right? So token one, for example, I'm just giving you an example, right? So token one we can take. So what kind of authorization grant type is it? For example, passport credentials are required. So using that passport credentials and all everything. So this is where generally we need to be mentioned about the user ID password for the particular token one name, whatever we have created here. And simply if you are creating new, get new access token and all, automatically token will be created. Make sure to remember here, whenever we are writing here, we have selected passport credentials. Then only you have to give user ID password. If it was not passport creations, We can select even authorization code also. That is completely depends on our requirement. This is all something which we can do. So that whenever you are clicking on get new access token, automatically access token will be generated. So whatever the access token was generated so far, everything that we can use here, right? So here you can see available tokens. Here you will be knowing about you will be getting the list of tokens which are already there, so that the tokens can be selected. At the same time, if you can click on save, automatically this tokens and all everything will be selected, because whenever we are working on OAuth 2.0, etc., it's always important for us to use these tokens and all everything is all about. So this is what and how generally whenever we are working on REST API in context to the configuration integration, when we are working on Guidewire with some other applications or something of that sort. This is what something which being into testing side, especially Guidewire testing side or admin side, right? So admin side, even some kind of admin activities, because OAuth 2.0 and all everything will also be performed by the admin part and all. But when it comes to the testing part and all, this is what and how usually this REST API and all everything are being used whenever we are working on the application, right? So this is all about this session today. So if you have any questions, please go ahead.